What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, Nintendo gave us a release date, but it wasn't for, say, Kirby Air Riders or Metroid Prime 4. No, it appears to be for a price increase, and it's not even for the generation of console that you'd expect. We'll go over that, though, here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Microsoft and Halo Studios, as it looks like they're gearing up to at least give us an idea as to what they have planned for the 25th anniversary of the Halo series. And we have EA, who went viral yesterday after they made the announcement of a return for a certain franchise that's been missing since 2010. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with price increases, but this being for Sony in Brazil and Turkey. In fact, you can see this is posted up. This is over on Game Rant, as they are discussing the price increase, for example, in Brazil, up to roughly $73 for big quote-unquote AAA games on the PlayStation 5. A lot of these, of course, being marked on the digital store for PSN. And then in Turkey, some of these games going upwards of $88 when converted over to US dollars. They have an entire chart here just showing some of the comparisons, some of the pricing, some of the previous pricing. And yes, we've seen Sony move prices up in general across the board in different regions as they kind of work around the US for the most part, trying to keep that as basically the same. And then they look elsewhere to raise prices, and Japan being one of the biggest one that I think shocked a lot of people because Sony's a Japanese company, so it's just kind of been Sony's MO really for the entire generation of the PS5. But also just it seemed like everyone has been increasing their prices, with Microsoft, I mean, just saying, hey, the Xbox Series, $600 now. What are we going to do? But with Sony, Microsoft, and actually we'll talk about Nintendo here soon, it's been a very weird stretch of 7 or 8 years now. Also, it looks like we have another hint at a big remake from Ubisoft for Assassin's Creed Black Flag. This we can see posted up. This is over on X from Zephyrus, who says Edward Kenway's voice actor Matt Ryan said this during a fan interaction. Have you beat the game, this being about Assassin's Creed Black Flag? Well, you may have to beat it again. There's a reason I say that, but I can't say anything. I mean, that's enough for people, obviously, to put 2 and 2 together and go, oh yeah, there was that rumor and report, I think Insider Gaming, who mentioned this, that, oh yeah, there's a Black Flag remake, and we could see it as soon as the end of this year, and maybe they release in the first half of next year. And that seems like a very obvious choice for Ubisoft, since it's very popular Assassin's Creed. Most people look at things like Assassin's Creed 2 and then Assassin's Creed Black Flag as their favorite one. So seems like a pretty big way for them to get a nice payday, we'll say, out of a game, rather than going off making a whole brand new one, be able to remake something and hopefully keeping it as close to the original. Should go over well with just fans in general, and then of course the mainstream audience who tends to just buy into Assassin's Creed right away day one. Oh, and not surprising, with Bandai Namco having their showcase this week, we have this listing. This popped up over on the ESRB website, with Elden Ring Tarnished Edition being rated for the Nintendo Switch 2, which obviously then leans into the idea that at this showcase, we should see the release date being given, and I feel like they're going to try to get this game out for the holiday season. It makes sense that maybe they announce it, the release date coming up here pretty soon this week, and then it's out in September or something like that. People are still looking at it as game key card, or what's the deal there? There have been box art shots of either one. I assume this is a game key card because we've seen that one thrown around, and based on how third parties are moving, it would make sense. But just in general, Elden Ring, which has sold a ton of copies, probably still going to see a fair amount of success there on the Switch 2. It'd be interesting to see the comparisons between that version and then the Steam Deck version, which I feel like that has been the go-to for many people playing it portably. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo issuing a press release through Newswire that seems to show them essentially announcing that here soon there will be a price increase for the Switch 1, which is already weird, but then also a bunch of stuff surrounding that. So let's take a look. We can see this over on Newswire. They say pricing for the original Nintendo Switch family of systems and products in Canada will change based on market conditions. These include Nintendo Switch OLED model, Nintendo Switch Lite, physical and digital Nintendo Switch games, and Nintendo Switch accessories. Other Nintendo products, including Amiibo and Nintendo Switch Online memberships, will also experience price changes. Please note this pricing change does not apply to the Nintendo Switch 2 system, accessories, or software. Pricing information specific to the Canadian market will be shared on their website here on August 1st. There you have it. We have a release date now for changes in pricing, which most of us look at this and go, okay, yeah, obviously they're raising their prices. And if they were lowering the prices, they probably would have just announced it right here. But they're like, oh no, August 1st, so a month from now, we'll let you know how the market conditions have deemed these price changes. And yeah, you're most likely going to see an increase on all those Switch 1 models, but also they mention Amiibo, accessories, software, and Nintendo Switch Online. Now, again, I see a lot of people already trying to go through reasons as to why prices would increase. I mean, the bottom line is Nintendo is looking to make money because they're a business. So if they start to fall into we'll say the negative here for what they're selling their products or even breaking even, Nintendo likes to make money on not only clearly their accessories and their software, but also their hardware. For the last generation devices that they're probably not selling a ton right now anyway, they're clearly selling more Switch 2 systems than Switch 1s. They'd rather just raise the price and just kind of leave it at that. The one that I think has really caught my eye here, and it's something that I figured would happen, is Nintendo Switch Online. That is harder to explain for people. People are, again, saying that challenging economic times, currency exchange rates, tariffs, doesn't really matter how you try to break it down. The bottom line is most likely here, this is an announcement for price increases. That's just the end result, and that's what most people are going to look at and care about there, sure. NSO, though, I figured Nintendo would look to raise NSO prices at some point, just because from Nintendo's angle, they are looking at that as a very valuable service just based on all of the games they've thrown on it. It's $50 a year for playing online, but then also hundreds of games now, and we're even wading into the territory of GameCube. Who knows? Maybe they have plans for DS or another third-party company like Sega could come in with, it'd be crazy, but Saturn or Dreamcast. Really, there are a lot of possibilities here, and they're really still sitting at something like $50 per year. Yeah, they're going to start thinking, how much more money can we get out of this? Because, well, that's just how businesses work. Also, keep in mind with Amiibos, they've become very, very expensive in general. Like, I've gone through Best Buy and I've seen like a $40 Amiibo. It's like, wow, they were $15 at one point back in the day, and I know it depends on third-party licensing deals and stuff, but even so, seeing a Nintendo Amiibo at $30, yeah, things have certainly gotten more and more expensive, but then also you're having more and more people pass on these different products then. So for me, it's just Canada right now, but I think it's also just something to keep in mind based on what we're seeing. Last generation systems going up in price. It's just weird. And that's kind of where we are with it. Like, maybe the days of just systems going down in price throughout a generation are just gone. And whatever you buy it for at launch ends up being the cheapest price overall, or the base price. Sure, you might get a Switch 2 Lite or something, but based on what they did with the Lite now for the Switch 1, it wouldn't technically switch, wouldn't plug in and play on the TV. So you've kind of lost functionality there in that case. But yeah, weird times, certainly. Nintendo raising the price of Switch 1, it feels like now with this announcement. We'll see exactly what pricing they settle on here and how exactly it fits in next to the Switch 2 price. Next up, let's talk about a weird situation that was happening between Nintendo and Amazon, because we didn't really have answers for why a lot of Nintendo's games were just disappearing off of Amazon's store for listings for Prime shipping. Buying your games there is very, very convenient if you have Amazon Prime, and I'm sure a lot of people out there do. But a lot of the listings were just gone. Nintendo was not selling through the website, despite doing it for quite a while with even previous generations up to that point with the Switch 1 for quite a while. Well, now it seems we may have an answer. So this was posted by Bloomberg. We can see, and also then copied here to Reddit, so that paywall and all of that, just make it easier, give you both links there. Say Nintendo pulled its products from Amazon.com Inc.'s US site after disagreement over unauthorized sales, meaning the e-commerce company missed out on the recent debut of the Switch 2, the biggest game console launch of all time. Nintendo stopped selling on Amazon after noticing that third-party merchants were offering games for sale in the US at prices that undercut Nintendo's advertised rates. Now, according to them, what was happening is that like big enterprise sellers were buying Nintendo products in bulk in Southeast Asia and exporting them to the US and then they would be able to sell at higher price points than they were buying them there when you had the exchange rate for currency. And well, here's the way Nintendo or Amazon tried to fix things for Nintendo, is have some sort of label that would then show that a product is guaranteed and they're getting it from the official source, that being Nintendo. But if you've been on Amazon, you can have those listings kind of blend in really, really well, and it feels like you're buying from a Nintendo, a Sony, or Microsoft until you go in and really look at the seller themselves and, oh, it's a third party, but they've maybe dressed things up to look very, very similar to that first-party company. Well, according to Bloomberg, this is why Nintendo just started pulling a lot of their products, because they didn't want it to be necessarily mixed in with third-party game sellers, since they can't necessarily back up the product there. Well, Amazon and Nintendo have both denied this report, which is kind of expected. There's really no proof of any of this happening, and it's kind of Bloomberg, I guess, looking into it further and getting sources, who knows, maybe at Amazon or even just Nintendo in general for making these deals with marketing. But that's kind of where we are now, at least with the explanation. The thing is, if you look on Amazon, the games are all back, so I guess Nintendo was able to figure it out with Amazon, at least. I've seen many of the games listings come back with Nintendo specifically as the seller. I think there was even a Switch 2 listing that popped back up officially from Nintendo. So I guess that was the reason, according to Bloomberg. We'll see if we get anything else out of it from an explanation standpoint. But the end result here is that Nintendo seems to be coming back. So I guess something was figured out there, maybe with just visibility, or being able to separate Nintendo further from those third parties who were trying to get one over and basically drop ship, say, some of these Switch accessories, games, and systems to Amazon. Next up, let's talk about Halo Studios and Microsoft, as they showed us the future of Halo, we'll say, and it seemed to really involve Unreal Engine, but also the studio itself, that being 343, being reformed into Halo Studios that would also focus on a bunch of smaller projects, as well as what appears to be a remake for Halo Combat Evolved. Well, now we know when we're going to get our first look, I believe, at this title. This we can see is posted up. This is over on the Halo Waypoint website, saying last year at Halo WC, or the World Championships, we premiered A New Dawn, where we talked about the switch to Unreal Engine, gave you a behind-the-scenes look at Project Foundry, and debuted our evolution to Halo Studios as we enter a new chapter for Halo. For us, A New Dawn was just the beginning. At this year's Halo WC, we look forward to continuing the conversation. Speculation is always fun, but if you want the official scoop on what Halo Studios has been working on, you won't want to miss this year's Halo World Championship. We really hope you'll join us in Seattle this October. So that's what we're looking towards now, hopefully for something big for the Halo franchise, which has been kind of sputtering along. I will say, if you haven't logged into Halo Infinite in a long time, and I know there's many people out there like, yeah, I haven't checked that out in years now, it feels like. They did something where they essentially took Halo Infinite and formed it into Halo 3 with different maps from that game and the online multiplayer, sort of the physics almost from it and the controls. And people loved it. Like it was, oh wow, this feels like classic Halo 3. And I will say the people who did love it, of course, are people who are just fans of Halo. I don't know how many new people are going to pull in with that sort of gameplay technically, but for people like me who really enjoyed Halo 3, yeah, I've been logging back into Halo Infinite every other day almost, getting a few matches in, and it was a lot of fun. So I don't necessarily know if they're going to incorporate that same feel with a Halo 1 or Halo Combat Evolved remake, because they do have to try to appeal to the mainstream audience out there. I will say, though, if they really make a play on Halo Combat Evolved and say it's a paid game, it's not this free-to-play thing, full campaign, full multiplayer, I think you come back to the table with just Halo. Like, you don't overthink it. You go back, you remake what is an awesome campaign in Unreal Engine, so you kind of get things figured out, and then you make the big push towards the next big Halo game. I've also wondered if you do a reboot. Like, if you just reboot the whole franchise, people have been calling for that as well, and you do it with this remake of Halo Combat Evolved. And yes, it goes to every platform you can get it on. Just try to work to almost rebuild that fan base that's been kind of scattered since, well, honestly, really since Halo 4, but definitely Halo 5. But we'll see what they have for us in October. I am hoping for a remake of the first Halo game. It lines up beautifully for next year with the 25th anniversary. And hey, if Microsoft really is going to launch their next generation system at the end of 2026, what better way to just kind of go with tradition from the first Xbox by having a big almost new, kind of new, Halo game, technically Halo 1, right next to it 25 years later. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a franchise that appears set to make a return, and it's been a long time, since 2010. In fact, EA made the tweet and it exploded online. I mean, it went crazy. You can see it here. Where they say, "Bring the madness, let's run it back." EA Sports, and it looks like they are then talking about college basketball. This tweet, by the way, almost 25 million views in less than 24 hours. It went ridiculous online. People are excited at the prospect. I mean, look what happened with college football when that made its return, which clearly I think has kind of spurred on EA to look around and be like, okay, what other college stuff can we bring back? Oh yeah, NCAA basketball. That was something we had back in 2010. Blake Griffin was on the front of the cover there. I specifically remember that way back in the day at the store. We had them in stock all the time, but they did sell fairly well. I remember on the Xbox 360 specifically. We have some more details here. This from Chris at The Athletic, saying EA Sports confirms the college basketball video game is coming back. Matt Brown reports it'll be 2028 with both men's and women's teams. Goes on to say upwards of 730 teams. The 2028 release date is because, it takes a long time as a year to get assets and build a game. And it's a 6-year deal with a minimum of 3 games in that time. And as I mentioned, we saw college football go crazy after they brought that back. I mean, it's like one of the most successful games, especially in the US, just in general. Like, it was up there for the NPD charts, made a ton of money in the month that it came out, even managed to just elevate console sales across the board, even for something like the Xbox Series S, which we know Microsoft in general, it's constant decline for their console sales. Not that month next to that game. So hearing about now the idea of NCAA basketball coming back, yes, I know they're talking about 2028, but now it's kind of out there. It seems like the wheels are in motion. So if you're someone who's been missing a college basketball video game, again, it's been 15 years now, right? Hopefully it's not gonna be too much longer. A couple more years, maybe it's a way for them to even start to kick off, at this point, next generation with a new college basketball game. So I guess keep an eye out for any other details, because it seems like, people are pretty excited about this one. Go figure. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you buy video games on Amazon? 51%, sometimes they're good sales. Okay. 38% say no, I don't buy games on Amazon. 11% just yes all the time. And I do know a lot of people who just say, I pre-order on there. It shows up day one. I'm good to go. Physical copies all the way, that good stuff. But for me, I will look on Amazon, but I am definitely the person who falls in line with that middle sometimes if they're good sales, because there are some pretty good sales to match even big box stores and retailers alongside Nintendo. And it's just the convenience thing. Amazon is so much easier for just clicking a few buttons and it'll be there tomorrow. Sometimes you click it and it's there in a few hours. It is kind of crazy. They're talking about drones dropping it off now, so you can get the new Pokemon game dropped off a little drone on your porch there. So for me, seeing like Nintendo, for example, back away from Amazon for a while was, it was a little annoying in that sense, but you just kind of gotta go where it's available, and that is like, I guess I'll go out to GameStop or Best Buy or wherever. But yes, Amazon getting those games back does make things a bit easier for release day, especially for hardware. That was the other big thing. If we get more and more of those systems back online here for Amazon, especially around Christmas time, sometimes that can be a lifesaver. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from BitJump Games, who says, I run a video game store that does repairs. We see a lot of early PS5 models coming for overheating. Every time there is a dry spot plus oxidation on the APU. So we clean that, reapply liquid metal, clean out all the dust, or dirt and dust we see. And that sounds exactly the same just about as back in the day for me with the 360 or the PS3. Same deal. 360, the fan would get stupid loud with those older, like the core or the white model or the black elite model. And you'd have a dry spot underneath the heatsink. You have to scrape off the compound because it dried that badly, reapply the compound, and then you get, fans were within reason at that point. It was still a whole thing back then with loud fans. But the PS5 is a whole other beast with the liquid metal stuff, and I am really interested to see just over time. We're talking right now about almost 5 years, but about 10 years, about 15 years. does make me wonder if liquid metal in general is going to be something that becomes more of a problem for the PlayStation 5, probably even after the PS6 is out, but certainly as it gets up there further and further in age. So to hear that one repair shop here, just kind of anecdotal evidence, is already running into that, it's gonna be interesting. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to see more about what's actually inside that Switch 2 dock, I'll leave that in a video right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.